Thursday, October 30th, 2025 at 11:28 a.m. Eastern. Dame. Guest canceled. Solar Rant. This is what it's going to be. Solar Rant. If you don't know what they are, it's when I don't have a guest, so I just talk and make things up for an hour. Sometimes I have a topic, and so the Solar Rant has some structure. Most of the time they don't, and it's me wildly scrambling to fill dead air for an hour. So if you like these then you like them. If you're looking for a structured thing, then that's not this. I just don't want to burn an hour of your time. Um, but yeah, so I mean sometimes I have a topic when I go. I don't even have that right now, so I don't even know what I'm gonna hit on. I guess I don't know. I'm just gonna start going stream of consciousness. Anything that pops into my head, whatever. The Jews, no. Um, yeah, I guess I don't know. First things that popped into my head, I was looking at some old episodes from like 2 years ago when I had the whole Blue Room studio. And it's kind of like the bell curve type thing, you know. It's like you get into guns, and it's the meme is like you need an SKS or a 22, or just like an AR and a pistol. And then the bell curve is and then you have to have a H&K custom with a can and a thermal ACOG, and then the other side is like Delta, and it's like no, you just need an SKS and a pistol and cardio. And I've definitely found that in the podcast. It definitely for a while, I think I tracked success or improperly correlated. The more jacked up the studio, the better. And to a degree, and with all growth, to a degree, it's true. But, you know, it's not all of it. It's not much of it at all. If it's anything, it's good when you have a huge guest to look somewhat professional. But I mean, dude, it's the quality of the conversation. That's just what it is. You can say it's, well, I like to see how respectful. Well, you're a fucking loser. It's the quality of the conversation. Um, which is why, I rarely even use like the good camera anymore. Well, number one, it overheats, so it's not that good, and it's cold. So you have to blast the AC. But even then, it's zoomed in. It's like darker. It's way cropped in. Um, and I feel like this one's just so much like lighter and fun. But yeah, I was just looking at some old episodes because I'm definitely on the other side of the bell curve now, where I'm just like, do a good conversation. I got sound panels right here, so we get no direct echo. I don't have a bunch of lights. Those always gave me a headache when I had like just fluorescence beaming into my brain. I got natural light, you know. But I was looking at some old episodes just from like 2 years ago. And there is something to be said for the good quality camera. There is something to be said for, if here I go from the gym to meditation to the show. There is something to be said for getting up 15 minutes earlier, putting on a clean shirt, combing your hair. And even I just put on like a nice watch. It's not nothing. I used to think it was everything, and now I'm looking back. I'm like, yeah, you just need an SKS and good cardio. Now I'm like, there is something for that. It does look nicer, and even just I grew my hair out wildly, and then I got it cut. And even now I'm looking at it, and I'm like, there's, I have wild calyx. There is something to be said for like keeping it trim and cropped and all that. Now, granted, I would look at big picture. It's like, so if you stop doing all those things, have you been declining? Well, no, the show's growing. It's making more money than ever before. So that right there means literally nothing else matters. Even this whole conversation I'm now having about how there's something to be said for that, even that actually doesn't matter. It is not actionable. None of it means anything. It's making more money. I remember my dad said that to me once. I was telling him about like subscribers and view time and view hours, and he's like, revenue. And I was looking at it, and he was like, yeah, that's all. He's like, I don't even want to hear other things. And I was like, that's a good point. What is it? Well, it's not about the money. When you're trying to grow it to a point where it's self-sustaining and you can continue to do it every day, it is about the money. Agreed. Once you hit a point to where, back to bell curve, I've been in a spot since October 2020 where this is my job and I can do this 5 days a week. That's the biggest like growth because you absolutely cannot, so this has taken almost 6 years, 5 years at being able to do this full time. Let's say I wasn't able to do this at full time. Let's say I could only do half as many shows per week, just a two and a half. It wouldn't necessarily take 10 years. Like this is taking 5 years. That would theoretically take 10 years, half the number of shows per week. You need double the time. I don't think that's the case. I think that could take like 20. I think there is something about there's always compounded growth, but I think there's something about compounded growth. It's like if I shut all the windows, I'm in Portland, man, I'm right on the ocean. It's cold. It's October, almost November. If I shut all the windows, turn the heat on, I can pretty efficiently, heat it up. It's not 100% airproof, but if I opened two windows, it wouldn't necessarily, if I have 10 windows and I shut them all, if I have 10 windows and I open them all, and then I have five windows and do half, it's not necessarily that it would be half as efficient or two times as efficient. It's cold. I love it because when it gets toasty, I can just open the windows for maybe 10 minutes upstairs, downstairs. And I did it last night. It was like 74. The game computer was running, and I knew I was going to bed soon. I think it was maybe 10 minutes, dropped down to 62. And I was like, that's cool. No pun intended. Um, I don't think it's necessarily like a linear efficiency where it'd be like, turn the heat on with two windows open. Like, no, it might never hit it. It's because you're creating so much heat that the gradient becomes larger and larger and larger. It's like if you have a big beaker and you put a hole in the bottom of it, as the water goes down, the rate at which it's leaving slows down because there's not as much pressure. You might never hit the temperature you want. So my point is like that's the big one. Where am I going with all of that? That's the big one. I used to think it would take twice as long. If I did half as many shows, it would take twice as long. There is, okay, what if I did 10 shows a week? Would it grow twice as much? I don't think so, because I did that for a while. I think by 2022, I did like I think the most shows I ever did in a year was 350. Pretty close. I might have done more. I might have gone over one a day. But that's the biggest growth. And I think if you slow down, I think there is something to be said about I don't think if you did half as many shows, it would take twice as much. I really think it might take like four or five times as long. There's something about making hay while the sun shines that I don't entirely understand, but I feel like I can understand it sort of intuitively. So that's the big one. That's the most important one. Um, but I was just looking at some old, and I was looking at it and I was like, I have all of that equipment. I have those clothes. I have those lights. I have all of the same machinery. And I was looking at it, and I was like, that looks nice. And I was like, okay. So I did it yesterday. I made sure to take a shower. And normally I just kind of work all day, and then towards the end of the day, I take a shower, and it sort of slows me down. Um, and do less laundry. But I was looking at it and I was like, that does look nice. It just does. It just does. So, I think I'm gonna go get a haircut, you know, put a little gel in it, comb it over. Even when I've just put on, I have a nice silver crucifix that I like. I like my watch. Even just, and one thing I've always kind of found, and I used to do it all the time, and I think I should, is just putting on like deodorant and cologne. I've been trying to use deodorant less in the last 6 months because I was like, doesn't it have aluminum in it? Like, isn't it bad for you? Like, I'm not going full hippie and smelling like dog shit, but if I'm at home all day, I'm like, yeah, I'm not gonna put it on. Isn't that bad for you? I think it is. Um, even just in general, like stop taking Tylenol and aspirin every time you have a fraction of a headache. Like, just wait, maybe it goes away. Um, but even that, doing that yesterday. putting on like clean pants, clean like boxers instead of like still being sweaty and kind of rank, putting on a clean shirt, like combing your hair, brushing your teeth, and like putting on a dab of cologne. And maybe I think a small fraction of people care about how it looks, but I think the intention of doing it, I think there's something there that I'm maybe not addressing or being honest with myself about. It's not like it's not like this is some intervention about, coming to terms with sobriety. It took me years to finally be honest with myself. That's not what this is. But I was looking at it, and I think and this is how I know it's true, is because part of me was looking at it and I was like trying to find reasons why I shouldn't keep doing it. And I was finally just like, it does look nicer. It just does. I know a lot of things I care about and most people don't. I care about my gap tooth. That most people probably hate that, but like even just calyx and stuff. And I was like, yeah, no, it looks better and it feels better. You put in the effort. Like my guest canceled today, and I'm already like, what are some things I can do so at the end of the day, I'm proud of some work I did. Um, and I'm doing them. But yeah, just right off the top of my head, so I don't know. I think I'm gonna try to start doing that. It's like that Lieutenant Dan meme, where he's sitting there in the wheelchair at the bar on New Year's Eve, and the confetti's coming down. He's just sitting there miserable. I remember seeing a tweet last New Year's Eve, and it was that, and it was like all the celebrations, all the new promises, but deep down, he's like, I'm not trying to sound like a Reddit atheist, like an edgy, like, "Well, it's just a calendar. It's actually like, fuck off." But he was like, knowing that none of it's actually real, that tomorrow's just another day, and it's winter, and it's cold, and it's dark. And then somebody made a follow-up to it, and they just used AI to make him smiling. And it was knowing full well that this is just another day. It's just another 24-hour clock. The calendar is made up. New Year's Day could be any day of the year. And even that doesn't matter. It's still just a day that goes around the sun. And then it was, and knowing that everyone still collectively, the vast majority, set out new goals for self-betterment. That's a really cool thing. In a world where there's a lot of bad, that's a really cool thing. And I saw that and I really like that. You could say, knowing Christmas isn't real. Well, the whole thing is you're supposed to have kids and then the magic continues. I don't have kids. I'd like to. If any women contact me, I am single. But I like last Christmas, I was getting kind of sad because I was having that feeling. I was like, what is Christmas when you're a single adult? And so I was like, fuck it. And so I just went and bought like $100, which is a lot of Walmart Christmas lights and like a tree. And I don't know, I might have had a wreath or something. And I loved it. It just felt fun. And I loved, when I'd be out doing stuff and I could see my apartment window and it's lit up. And maybe it's just because I was looking for it then, but I swear I started seeing like more as I looked for it. I did start to see more Christmas lights, more trees and windows. There is something to be said for the effort. And so I think I'm going to start doing that. I told you it was a solo rant with no topic, so I would say, oh, and the point of bringing up money, we're like, no, the big thing is now you can do it full time. That's 99% of the growth, right? It's like Ace Combat as you level up the tree and unlock planes. With every plane, you can add things. It's like better ailerons, better like wingtips, better afterburner efficiency. You can do all these things that maybe make the plane 15% faster, maybe 20. And you can unlock all those things, and it takes a ton of skill points and achievements and kills, and or you can save up and just unlock the next plane. And oftentimes the next plane is like 50% faster. And it's like you can add a ton of bells and whistles to the first plane, or you can be like a little patient and get another plane because you start off with like a 1950s like Starfighter or something, and then you go up through the F-22 and then like, like Area 51, like experimental planes. But it's like that's the majority of the growth. It just unlocked the next one. It has two thrust vectoring engines. Like just unlock the next one. So whereas the big thing is making money to do this full time, the other big thing is I've been sober since January 2024. Last year was the first like big year of it. And I was kind of gracious to myself. I was like, you can have like a crazy cheat day every week. Or I think I was giving myself like 2 cheat days a week. I was like, just stay sober. Like, please stay sober. And so I did. And so like twice a week, I would eat like 8,000 calories of pizza. That was great. I stayed sober. I went from like 195 to 230 by November. Okay. So the last year, I've intensely dieted. I've gone from 230 to 185. So my point is like it's the advancing the Jets. Big one, make enough money to do the show full time. Next big one, stay sober. It helps you do shows better. You're not kind of strung out on the first 2 days. You're not, just focusing on the end of the week. And okay, another big one is like if we're gonna talk about visual, let's just be very honest. I've lost 45 pounds. Losing 45 pounds, if we're just talking about, hey, it looks better, your face objectively looks better if you're 45 pounds less. I'd rather have me wear disgusting workout clothes with unkempt hair and be 45 pounds less than I don't know, curated, well groomed and be a fat fuck. Now, once you have unlocked the last plane in the tree, you absolutely should grind to make that thing 10, 20% faster because that's where the winning edge is. And 10 or 20% of that last plane in the tree is that growth alone is equal to like the entire delta V of the early plane. So, okay, cool. Made the money. Okay. Sober. Okay. Losing weight. Still got, so I want to drop 15 more. Okay. You can turn on the good camera again. You already have the camera. That's the other thing is like you've already purchased the enhanced afterburners. You purchased them 2 years ago. Use those again. Use the good camera. I don't think because I have good natural light. Um, Now you're kind of doing you're getting the meat and potatoes. Why wouldn't you further enhance it? So I think that's what I'm maybe looking at is like, yeah, ultimately, no, I'd much rather you be sober. I'd much rather you save money. And I'd much rather you diet and lose fat. That being said, you should kind of touch up the end product. So I don't know. Those are just some thoughts percolating in my head about how that is the most important. Um, yeah, and I'm psyched. I got the last episode uploaded to YouTube yesterday. I've been uploading like 50 a day for a month. That's another thing is as I was waking up an hour early, and you have to like you actually do have to monitor it. At least on this iMac, like Safari will just like shut down if I leave 10 tabs open. If I do more than 10 tabs, it all kind of freezes. If I do 10 tabs or less, if I don't continually like refresh and monitor, it kind of chokes out. So, um, that was kind of a thing. But I'm psyched about that. It feels good. I like being back on. Um, I'm hopeful. Um, Again, I guess on that note, it's like another thing I've been kind of toying with is I put it in my like daily to-do list. Every once in a while, when I have like a new idea or a new pattern, I'll incorporate it into the daily to-do list. And if it lasts longer than like a month, then it's kind of good. And if it's not, then I kind of get it out. Um, some things like being grateful or blah, 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 blah. Other things I realize I don't need to do. Like, I put in like do laundry, make ice. And it's like, I'll just do those when I need them. Being grateful is a thing that it's been in there for over a year now, and it's great. Listen to an hour of the audiobook every day. I've been doing that since 2019. It's great. Um, Two things I've done in the last like month or so that I really like is one, read one positive news report every day. And I think I tried that years ago and I eventually canned it. Now, some of the positive news reports are, you know, the other day it was like the New York subway opened 124 years ago. And I'm like, that's kind of cool. That doesn't really offset like, you know, vaporizing all of Gaza, but it also doesn't mean you can't find good in that. And some of them are cooler, breakthroughs in graphene and breakthroughs in like a new rust powered battery. The one I read today was a kid donated stem cells to his dad and it saved him from cancer. And some of them are really cool. Uh, I think on Monday was the 63rd anniversary of the Russian submarine captain guy who didn't fire the nuclear torpedo and would have pretty much vaporized the planet in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And it's a shame I can't even remember his name. But that was cool. And how he was pretty much persona non grata for the rest of his life in the Soviet Union. Everyone on the submarine hated him. They were all like outcast. And for a long time, people were like, "Well, they didn't really have nukes." And then I guess the Soviets declassified in 2000. Like, actually, they did. They had like a megaton torpedo, and it's like, oh. Um, but back to the Lieutenant Dan thing. I concluded last week after a couple days of it. I was like, this is kind of gay. That the intention of looking for a positive news story, that is, I would say, even more valuable than the actual news story. The fact that I'm trying to take even 30 seconds out of my day and looking for the good. And I don't mean this in like an up a better person for it. No, 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 I like that. For me personally, I like that. For me personally, like I like that I spent money on Christmas lights last year. I like that. That's a personal, I don't know, a spark, a personal, you know, a higher energy, higher frequency, whatever the new age shit you want to call it. That's a personal light that I want to keep and I want to expand. Let me turn that AC up a little bit or the heater up a little bit, and I'm gonna piss. One sec. Let me mute it so you don't hear me. Can I mute myself when I'm the only one? Unmute myself. The positive news thing, and then another thing is I put in my because sometimes I'll have these thoughts about I should add that to my daily thing in the middle of the night, and the next day I'm like, that's retarded. Or it's like right when I get up and I'm jacked up and I just took caffeine, I'm at the gym and I'm like, let's go, you're ready to go. And then later I'm like, that's just like I've never done coke, but I'm like, that's like a coked up like whatever. Um, But a thing I added last month was the negative thoughts, the self narrative, the anxiety, and it's different from real anxiety. Like some anxiety is good. If you haven't paid rent in 3 months and they're banging on your door, you should feel some way about that. You know, if somebody you love just died, you should feel depressed and you should welcome it. But so much of the self-narrative, the self-beratement, the harsh criticism, and again, not all of it's bad. That is what drives you forward, especially when you're your own boss. Like you do have to, crack the whip. Um, but I made a note. I was like, these thoughts I welcome so freely to just bounce. Oh, you're gonna have a bad day. You're gonna be anxious. That you're gonna really freak out about. You're doing something wrong. You're letting everyone down. You're not working hard enough. You're not saving enough. You're not great. I made a note that if that was somebody talking to me, if you can't move, you're on a plane or what if it's a family member, you kind of can't do anything about it. But I would break contact as soon as I could. If it's just over the holidays, you're like, whatever, I won't see him for a year. But if it was like when I play video games, if it was somebody on Discord every night telling me about all my issues, even if let's just say they weren't trying to be like an ass, they just really were telling me all the things I should be anxious about. If that was somebody leaving a comment, if that was somebody emailing me, if that was somebody calling me, if that was a guest I was having on, if that was a news story I was watching, and again, not legitimate criticism, not legitimate anxiety. Well, you haven't, you haven't whatever. You haven't paid your bills. You haven't done they're going to turn your power off. Those are the real ones. I get it. And not the real criticisms like, well, you probably should sober up. You probably should lose some weight. But all the other ones, if any of those things were true, it's not even a theoretical about I would do. It's what I provably have done in my life. And I've gotten better over the last couple of years about boundaries and, kind of demands and expectations I have. I would break contact. I would hang up. I would just exit out of Discord. I wouldn't pick up the call next time. I wouldn't read the text or I'd outright block the number. I'd block the email. I'd report as spam. I wouldn't read the comment. I would stop. I would exit out of the news story. I would stop listening to the book or the podcast, whatever the telegram you get, the telegraph, the dancing, whatever bouquet of flowers that says you're fucking worthless. All of those things. And again, not theoretically. What I do is I move it out of my life. And it doesn't mean you gotta make some stand and be like, fuck you. No, the best way to break contact with some is to a point where they don't even realize that it's been a year since they've talked to you. You're supposed to do it very slowly and slyly. One, to not rock the boat, but two, that for the person doing it, it's also for your own. Be like, hey, no need to be a dick about this. Just ease out of there. And when I started thinking about it like that, it helped a lot. Now, the downside that's to that is again, there are legitimate criticisms. Yeah, I don't, whenever I hear that voice in my head that's like, hey, you shouldn't be drinking 4 nights a week. Hey, you shouldn't be eating 50,000 calories a week. And you know what I say? I said, that's a rude cousin. I say, get out of here. When I get that theoretical phone call that says, hey, you haven't paid rent in a year under this code of the local city, the sheriff's gonna evict you tomorrow. You know when I say that? I say, no, thank you. I break contact. You can't do that. So again, you got to weave the middle ground, which has helped me kind of deduce further. I was talking to this, I don't even know if it was a week ago. I think it was on Sunday with Nick Petruzzello, whatever. I have just a lot of the times, and it's, again, sometimes anxiety, it's like, there's also like a middle, there's a whole, well, you should be anxious, you haven't paid rent versus like, hey, you're beating yourself up. And then there's sort of like the anxiety that is real, and but it will pass. And that's for me, it's like Monday morning. I've got this many shows, this God knows how many emails and thumbnails and networking and advertising and projection and budgeting and all the just stuff you do when it's just you. Yeah, it's like you're gonna be anxious about that just because it's Monday morning. You gotta go back to the gym. You gotta, no, don't let it cripple you. But it's also kind of silly to say that like you're not gonna have that on Monday morning. It's like your first day back in school. Like you're gonna do it. You've been doing it your whole life. But even by the time you're a junior in high school, and you've been doing it for 11 years. There is still a party where the first day, oh, you gotta get your binder, you gotta get the syllabus and like that's fine. It's not gonna end your life, but it's also not fake. It's just, like every day, like I don't want to go to the gym. Now there are days where I'm injured and it's like you shouldn't. Then there are days where it's like, well, you haven't gone in a while, so you should. And then there are days like today where like this is a gym day. I still drag my feet. So, but in the same vein of talking about if it was a negative text, a group chat you were in, you go, dude, I'm not. If it was a negative Twitter account you were following, you're like, why would I? This is, I don't want to see this. And it's not putting your head, and there is a lot of bad in the world, but it's also like you pick your battles, dude. Like, make the world better where you are. It doesn't mean that like what's happening in Gaza or Sierra Leone isn't bad. If you got money, you have the will and the time and the freedom to go change something, go do it. And if you have to focus on your immediate life and be a good father and employee, and then do that. An outgrowth of that is you have just as much evidence that today is going to be an incredible day as you do that today is going to be a horrible day and you're going to be anxious. And then much less frequently. Dep and I mean, I'd always take depression over anxiety. Depression, you're just tired and you kind of psych yourself out and get back into it. Anxiety just sucks. You have just as much evidence that today's going to be like a sick day. And so if I said, dude, today, fucking October 30th, this is the day, man. Mm, I'm not saying you're going to make $1 million, but today's a big day of growth for the podcast. It's going to be better than usual. That's what we should focus on. Better than usual, notably better than usual. The pessimistic part of my brain's already like, yeah, yeah, tell me about it. Tell me how this grind gets better. All I'm saying is it's going to be better than normal. Just a little bump in subscribers, a little, you know, better revenue. Okay, well, the same way you roll your eyes at that, and why would you roll your eyes? You'd say, well, I'm not a pessimistic person. I try to stay optimistic, but I'm also like, you know, I know that good things come from a lot of hard work and they're not little lottery winnings. So although I agree that the show is going to continue to grow, I'm going to do better and save. I'm also like, why would today be better? And again, I try to be a very positive, optimistic person. I think it's incredibly good for your own brain. But I'd also be like, yeah, I don't think today's going to be the day where it blows up. Okay, maybe not blows up, and today you make more money than you have in 6 years. What if today was just like 10% better? Why would it be? I got a full night's sleep, went to the gym, crushed it. I hurt my back last night or yesterday at the gym, and it didn't hurt it nearly as much today. That's awesome. Called my mom, did a locals video, finished uploading to YouTube, dieting, got food for the rest of the week. Like, there's no reason it's going to be bad, but I don't think it's going to be necessarily like fantastic. Okay, well then why would it be bad? The same way you have to ask yourself, go, well, what is Monday morning? You're coming back after 2 weeks on Christmas break. You easily put on 10 pounds. You got to get back into the grind. You can't just stay up scrolling till 3 a.m. You got to, yeah, first day back and be like, yeah, I'm a little wound up. Okay, fine. In the same way that on Friday nights, I'm a little more relaxed. I don't drink anymore. I don't smoke anymore. Why are you a little more relaxed? Why are you a little more free? I don't know. I got 2 days off. All right, so that's fine. That's the inverse to the Monday. But you have just as much evidence that today is going to be a categorically worse day. Not the worst day ever, but just 10% worse. You have just as much evidence that it's going to be 10% worse as you do that it's going to be 10% better. And if you're going to say, one school of thought would be like, you should always think it's going to be 10% better and keep it positive, and maybe you do manifest. I have no idea. I'm not at all like I do not exclude the idea of like manifestation at all. I legitimately think there's some like entanglement with your brain and reality and what you perceive. Because ultimately, and I saw this quote, it was misquoted to the Bhagavad Gita because that's like 5,000 years old. But it was, you don't experience reality, you just experience your nervous system. That is a wild statement. And maybe if you just, you know, you add alcohol to it, you add Xanax, yeah, your nervous system's like, this is awesome. Why couldn't you do that naturally? Why couldn't you always be looking for the positivity? I think you do, and it's good. But in the same way, you would tell yourself, yeah, I'm not a pessimist. I'm open. I work hard. I'm all about, God will guide me. But rationally, I would say today's probably not going to be 10% better. What it's going to be is probably going to be another day in a long year where at the end of the year, I put in a lot of work and look, it grew this much. That's positive, but I'm a little more tempered with it. I've managed expectations. I don't want to let myself down. So that means you're not an outright like pessimistic person. You kind of just you don't want to let yourself down, but you're still all about we should be looking for the silver linings. You should be okay. You want to wire your nervous system that way. Okay. You have to apply that same rationality to be like, I'm not saying today is not going to be anxious. There could always be things. That's how these things happen. The worst days of my life, orders of magnitude worse, have never been something that I was planning. You know, it wasn't a bad grade on a test. It wasn't some blah blah blah. It's horrible shit that just hits you. Well, I'd have to look at that and be like, well, there's really no evidence on why it would be bad either. Now, and this is like very recent in my life, like past week, if even. When looking at those, the balanced barbell, 45 pounds on each, when looking at those, if you still find yourself leaning towards, well, today it might be anxious though. It might be. I know you got a full night's sleep, all your bills are paid, you got savings, blah blah blah. Podcast is backed up on multiple websites, on multiple hard drives in multiple locations. You got an emergency fund to run the show for a year. But it might be anxious because you get anxious a lot, man. You might get anxious today. It's probably more likely you're going to get anxious. Well, now you have to be very honest with yourself and go, not saying it's going to be the best day ever. I'm not saying it's going to be the worst day ever. I'm going to say it's a 10% deviation in better or worse, happier or sadder, energetic or lethargic. If there is equally zero evidence or equally a lot of evidence for both, I don't get enough sleep, I'm always anxious. But there are days where you don't get enough sleep, but it's because something awesome is happening. Like when I got to go meet Alex Jones, or when I have on, General Mike Flynn or Roseanne Barr or Mike Lindell or Charlie Duke, the Apollo astronaut. That's a little different. You're kind of like this, okay, this is awesome. Well, that's where the good is outweighing, or at the very least just canceling the bad. If when confronted, given, provided equal evidence, the existence or the lack thereof the evidence, that it's going to be better or it's going to be worse, and you find yourself leaning towards it's going to be worse, now you actually start to have to ask yourself, and again, I'm not some people, and you see them and I feel for them, but you can just tell they create their own rain clouds. it's gonna be a fucking bad day. Woe is me, and because I know, I mean, because I was there for 5 years, and then there are the people that are just delusionally just detached from reality, and that's also not good. But if I take someone like myself, who I believe I'm an extremely hard worker, I'm disciplined, but I try to stay optimistic to a childish degree. Not don't be retarded, but to a childish like, why couldn't it work? Like, let's go. Like, why can't it happen? Why can't the magic happen? And I still find myself leaning towards that. Well, then you have to be very honest about yourself and go, on some very deep level, do you want it to be bad? No, again, no, no, I really don't. I don't. I don't find some people like love the darkness, like a Charles Bukowski. I don't. I really don't. Okay, so it's not that you want the self-pain or the self-sabotage. Well, then the next level is like, is there trauma there? And everyone has trauma. I'm not going to do some, well, everyone has it. What trauma, damage, whatever you want to call it. Is there something there? So if you say, well, deep down inside, do you actually love the pain? Like part of like as much as I hated the panic attacks I would get after drinking, I kind of did love like the comeback where you rise from the ashes. You're like, I'm not anxious today. I'm gonna fucking work out. And then I did that hamster wheel for a couple of years, and I was finally like, yeah, I don't really like the comeback story. I kind of just rather not do it. Okay, well, thought one of the sound panels was falling off. If it's not deep down you like the self-sabotage, then you have to be honest about yourself and go, maybe something's miswired. And it's not necessarily malicious. It's not necessarily incompetence. It's not necessarily an external force that traumatized you when you were a kid or something. Or maybe it is all of those, or any of them, or any combination of them. But even if it's to no one's conscious fault, even if no one, broke the remote, no one did it and hit it, if it just really something happened, okay. But we do have to address like, but I think the remote is broken. It's like only every third time change the channel. Okay. Well, at the very least, you have to be honest about it. And it is important to find the cause because sometimes those causes are far more important than the actual thing. You go, well, somebody's taking your batteries, so you got to shoot that person. Why did I say that? You got to shoot that person. What the fuck? But you'd have to be honest and go, maybe something's miswired. And I'm trying to be very, and this, when I say new, I mean maybe in the last 5 days of my 35 years alive. If the evidence is equal for neither, and you know that deep down that you don't actually like that's not who you are, but you still find it leaning that way when it should be 50-50, just statistically, you got to go, oh, there's something to fix. And it might not be anybody's fault. It might be everybody's fault. Regardless, there's something you got to fix there. Why do you lean that way? Well, the way I was, whatever it is, why is the neural network grown that way? My little brother said it to me, and I thought it was actually brilliant. This was like 4 days. This is all extremely recent in my life, less than a week. Because he's like me, an anxious mess. We've both been lifting weights for 20 years. He's like, your go-to anxiety muscle has been bench pressing and leg pressing and doing sprints and preacher curls and whey protein and amino acids and tracking his macros. He's been doing that for 20 years. The inverse muscle, and again, none of this is like the rational anxiety we talked about earlier. The inverse muscle of going, hey, maybe I don't really think there's any evidence that it's going to be bad. I mean, in the sense that life is suffering. It's like, yeah, you got to go to the gym, blah, 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 blah. But you do that every day. Where's the evidence that it's going to be? categorically worse. That guy just got into the gym. Now he's gonna have, beginner's luck and all that, blah 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 blah. He's gonna. But what would you say to him if he goes, "How do I do this?" Well, if you really wanted to do steroids, but I wouldn't do that because I'm a pussy. I'll never do steroids. They terrify me. Somebody's just very pragmatic and they're like, just lay it on me. Like, dude, it's just gonna be legitimately an insanely hard 5 years and you'll pack on muscle, or like a moderate 10 years. And then even after that, maintenance. But you gotta do it every day. Stop looking for it to be finished tomorrow. And you'll get there. Same thing with the podcast. How do you do it? Do one episode a day, Monday through Friday. No shortcuts, no, dude. It's the long slog. That is the muscle that is going. Why should it be bad? Like, hold on. Why shouldn't it be bad? Or why should it be bad? Sorry. And so I'm trying to like baby that muscle because I think I have, just like you're right-handed, I think I have through what external fault or my own, whatever, I have definitely extremely developed that muscle of bad. You're doing something wrong. You're going to get caught. You're letting everyone down. You're actively hurting people. You're not pushing hard enough. You're failing. You're going to regret this. Why aren't you more grateful? Why aren't you trying harder? Why aren't you pushing yourself further? You have to break yourself to succeed. All those things, to a degree, are not bad when based in reality. You do need to work on the muscle that says why. Why? Now, sometimes, like right after shows, I'm always kind of anxious. And the only way I can describe it is it's sprinting. I think EM and I talked about this, like contemplative inertia, like contemplative neural inertia, in that it is sprinting through a finish line. When you sprint through a finish, you know how when you're slowing down, I haven't sprinted in God knows how many decades. But when you're slowing down, you don't even have to actively slow down. You just kind of stop and you can feel your legs just dunk, dunk, dunk. You just kind of, you're like a plane coming to, or you could, if you tried to stop immediately, you'd probably break your legs, or if you hit a padded wall, you know, but it takes a second, right? I just get that after podcasts. Even when I go to the gym sometimes, like sometimes I'll do my body weights, then the free weights, and then the cardio. Normally, if I just drink way too much, I'll go pee like in between of that and the cardio. There's like 15 minutes weights, then it's like 17 minutes cardio, and I just hate the feeling of having to pee. And I'll take the headphones off, and I'm very used to the gym. I'm just any room you're used to, you kind of cancel everything out. And then I go to the bathrooms where I've statistically been about 1% of 1% the equivalent time of in the gym, headphones out, and I'll be going in there sometimes, and I'll almost be like, "What is that noise?" And I'm going. And I've been working out for almost 25 years. Or I'll be sometimes I get on the phone as soon as I leave the gym. I call someone and I find myself going, "Excuse me, sorry." I'm leaving a voicemail and I'm like, "I just left the gym." I'm in, I would say, relatively great shape for somebody at 35. But I still feel that every day. And it's not bad. It's not a panic attack. I don't even notice it until it's isolated. I get that after the the podcast. As soon as I wake up, turn on an audiobook and I do a bunch of busy work, emails, texts, thumbnails, networking, emails, phone calls in that time. First hour, take a shit, normally make ice, laundry, dishes, meal prep. supplements, all that shit. Go to the gym, 30, 35 minutes, come back up, meditate, 30, 20, 30 minutes, which is, although it calms you down, still very brain intensive, extremely brain intensive. It's difficult to do. And then podcast. I mean, right now, I'm filling an hour solo. It's a whole nother thing when you have somebody else and you got to read them at all. You got to know where they're going. You got to keep them engaged. You got to keep the show engaged so that people actually watch it. You can't have dead air. You have to watch the vibe. You don't want to kiss ass. You also don't want to be needlessly combative or yeah, overly combative or blah blah blah. You gotta weave your way. You also want to make sure that they come back on. You also want to make sure that they have a good time. You also want to make sure it's worth listening to, other than, oh, that's my friend, he does that. You want it to actually stand out on its own and be an undeniably appealing product. You gotta do all this stuff. You gotta watch the clock. You also got to plug their stuff. You also got, and there is some ass kissing. You also want to, there is charisma and all that stuff. And you also want to, then get your own thoughts out. You want to use it for your own thing and create it to be your own and be better at it. And then zip, 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 zip. It's a lot more than just being by yourself and doing it. Um, when I finish that, take care, everybody. God bless. Thanks for watching. Peace. Shut it all down. Even when everything else is done, the daily to-do list is all the red dots are turned to green dots, and I got nothing else to do. Go take your time, flip on the game stream, relax, turn on some Warhammer 40K lore. I am right. And I kind of freeze, and I'll go and just like scroll. I'll go and YouTube short. Jesus Christ, that just scared me. This big jug of water, and I guess that it was so cold, and then I turned the heater on. This just popped. Talking about like not being anxious. It just Jesus, yeah. See, I have an issue. Let's be very honest. I have an issue. Um, even when everything's good, that first hour, and I found after years, it's just what it is. It's not enjoyable. Uh, my, my brain just, and I know that I have been improperly correlating that with anxiety. No part of me ever leaves the gym and catches me when I take my headphones off or I'm in the elevator. I always notice if somebody else is in there talking, and you're like, they always say, like, just left the gym. You're like, yeah, even though I do this every day. I mean, let's be very honest. It's good that you're out of breath. It means you're pushing yourself. That's self-growth. But no part of me is ever like, hey man, hey dude, sit down. What's your pulse? How are you doing? If you have any drugs today, get your phone. Hey, you can't go be alone right now. You got to make sure someone's nearby you in case you collapse. Because if you collapse, you can't call 911. What? No, what the fuck's wrong? Get away from me. I just had a good workout. Getting that pump on, bro. Hit my delts. No, never. I don't think I've ever done that. Ever. I remember one time going for a run at like 11 p.m. in college because I'd been studying all day and I was exhausted and I had to keep studying and I had to test at like 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. and I was like, I gotta just go through the night. And I left my apartment and I ran maybe 100 feet and I thought I was gonna die. And I was completely like, I've been on like Adderall and Red Bull all day, even though I'm extremely healthy. And that was when I was like insanely healthy. I was like, that's gonna kill you. That's the only time ever. One time ever in my life. that I stopped working out immediately because I was like, something's wrong. I used to do the sauna all the time when I lived at home between 2016 and 2021. Only one time in all of that did I ever once feel like might have had a heat stroke. And that there are times where I thought I had it and then it would kind of go away. This one was different. I vividly remember it getting in a cold because like it was getting harder to like think. It was bad. I had pushed it way. Anyone that's done a sauna regularly knows there are times when you're a lot hotter, but even then you kind of get used to it. Then there's one where you're like, this is actually something's maybe not good. Um, so one occasion in the sauna, one occasion in 23 years of working out. Not only were there only one times where it was actually bad, and the out of breathness maybe was warranted, but other than that, I would say not only is the out of breathness not bad, it's actually good. Now I've known it took me a while to accept it, but even then, it's probably been a couple years now where I'm just like, after the podcast, I'm kind of just wound the fuck up and like pacing. I would say that means you pushed yourself, which is good if we're going to growth. And even if you say it's not good, okay, let's just say it's neutral. What I wouldn't do is associate those physiological or psychological symptoms with anxiety. The one time I was worried after I went for that run, I maybe ran for 10 seconds. And the one time I was nervous about the sauna, that was in like 2018. On paper, on a medical diagnosis sheet, the symptoms are the exact same that I have every single day leaving the gym. Okay. Not only Not only is it not bad, not only is it good that you are out of breath after the gym, I would go even another step further and say it's actually going to mean that you're more relaxed in an hour than had you not. So you're going to go even farther than saying not only is it not bad, it's good. It means you push yourself. And if you push yourself, that actually means that you're actually going to be calmer later because it releases endorphins and kephalines. And I'm now, even now, I'm kind of having like a breakthrough realization because that symptom, now it's not physical, but it's a mental, and you're mentally out of breath. That feels a lot like anxiety, probably more so than even though there are physical symptoms, panic attack is the exact same symptoms of leaving the gym. That's not what gets me nervous when it's a panic. It's the psychological part, right? So maybe I've just, yeah, I'm kind of having like a breakthrough right now. Yes, that is subjectively, it doesn't feel good. It's hard to hold on to a thought. And it also means that if it's hard to do any thoughts, that also includes that very new, yeah, wow, fuck, I'm having a breakthrough realization right now. Also including that very new muscle that you're building about why are things, holy shit, things aren't bad. If I'm really tired and I leave the gym, I can probably still curl. I have huge biceps. If I'm really tired and I leave the gym and I don't know, I just for the first time ever did an oblique exercise. Who the fuck does their side abs? If I'm equally out of breath and tired, I'll easily still be able to do a curl. I'll easily still be able to go, yeah, you're gonna be anxious, you're fucking up, you're a piece of shit. That brand new baby muscle of like, hey man, it's probably not bad. That guy's dying. That guy needs help on a good day because it's a baby, it's an embryo, it's a little sapling. Now the very thing you're using, the muscle, the brain, is completely zapped. You are going to fall into patterns. You're going to fall immediately into the path of least resistance, which is the strong bicep muscle of you're a fuck up. You fucked up and you should feel bad. And bad things are coming that you cannot prevent and you can't handle. baby muscle is fucking unconscious with low blood sugar, let alone putting up an effort. Wow. Wow. I, Now it doesn't, let's just keep going with this. Now it doesn't make it any less true, any less untrue, any less true. But be aware of that fact. And also, I would say be aware that for the other 23 hours, I guess not sleeping, but let's just say 23 hours, you should be knowing that that hour window is coming. That means you got 23 hours to build this muscle up. You get 23 hours out of the day. And then for 1 hour, it's going to be fucking knocked out. But build this up, make it stronger, and don't get demoralized. Yeah, if somebody said I've been doing a podcast for a month and nobody watched, I had one friend that started a podcast, bought all the equipment, maybe did 30 episodes, and I was like, "Fuck this, dude." I think his exact words were like, "My show should be insanely huge. Like I'm putting out great content." Even if it was true, it wasn't. But even if it was true, I'd be like, you've been at it for a month. What the fuck are you talking about? Somebody said, "Man, been in the gym, dude. Been going every day since October 15th, dude. This is bull. Why would I put more time into this? I've already wasted 15 hours of my life. Why?" I'm like, "What are you talking about? This takes forever. It's a thing you do now. Why wouldn't I feel a bit demoralized? Well, I tried to not be anxious and it didn't work. Why wouldn't I? I haven't even been doing this for a week." Now, just like being out of breath after the gym, except that it is what it is, except that for like an hour, I kind of just feel you know what's weird though is I don't really get it from the solo ramp, but whatever. Except that it's there, do whatever you need to do to, occupy it. Busy work often helps, dishes, laundry, and just let it ride out. And then it goes away, and every day it goes away. Every day I feel it and I go, I'm gonna feel horrible for the rest of the day and probably the rest of my life. And then every evening I'm laughing and playing video games. I'm like, yeah, yeah, whatever. Yeah, you should be growing that muscle as much as you can. And not only that, you should be actively sabotaging the anxiety muscle. In the same way that it took years and then I stopped putting laundry, dishes, and make ice in my daily to-do list because I realized like and make sure you have groceries because it finally dawned on me after years. I was like, hey, those are all things you'll do when you need to do because you'll know. When you're out of clean clothes, when the washer and dryer are stuffed, when there are no dishes in your cabinet, when there is no ice for your cup, when you don't have, those aren't things you need to like hit every day. Like I don't put it in my list like charge your phone. And charge when you need to, you fucking moron. It doesn't mean that it's there when it needs to be there. And listen, if you find yourself in a post-apocalyptic scenario, you can rev up the anxiety, paranoia, mostly, whatever. It doesn't mean, and this is, I think, an important distinction. This doesn't mean that you can't hope for, just for this analogy, it doesn't mean you can't hope for peace. That doesn't mean you can't pray for better. It doesn't mean you can't look for the silver lining in things. But you also have to be, you also don't want to be a fucking detached hippie and go, I don't lock my doors, man. I don't even care. No, my doors are locked and I have multiple guns in multiple rooms. You don't want to deactivate that part of your brain. That's not what this is. I'm not saying deactivate the part that deals with anxiety and depression because it is a very real feedback system. but I would say stop juicing it up every day because I have been juicing it up. I'm trying to, I was pretty anxious in college. Anxiety really came into my life around 2010. But again, but I also I legitimately don't remember. I don't know what thoughts I'm like overlaying on memories. That was a lot of like hard work, and you do have to be the best when you're pre-med. But yeah, I'd say probably from like my brother died till now, and there is correlation in that. That's not somewhere I don't know if causation equals cor. Shut the fuck up. But I've been building that muscle for a long time, and I've outright refused to build the counter muscle. And now that I am building it, legitimately for only the last couple days, should also be very aware of the hurdles that are absolutely inevitable. Demoralization, pulling the muscle, whatever. Actual anxious days where something does happen, you go, see, see. No, 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 that's that again. I don't put make ice in my daily to-do list because when I'm out of ice, I make ice. There's no need for that. Other shit I do forget. That's why I have the to-do list. Did you make the thumbnail for, shit. Did you send the Zoom invite? Oh fuck, I do got to do that. Some things I do have to do. And I was doing that episode yesterday with Mr. Burbage about the F-35, and I could feel I took Friday and Saturday off, did one show Sunday, and then I went was with family Sunday night, Monday, and then all of Tuesday, and I got back Tuesday night. There's a little bit of anxiety yesterday because it's sort of like a Monday. Back in it. Okay, cut down the diet. All right. Ooh, ooh, yeah, I can feel it. I can feel it around my stomach. All right, we'll get back to the diet, get back to the gym, blah, blah, blah. Can't stay up all night. You can't, just watch YouTube shorts till 3 a.m. and wake up at noon and, just hang around the lake house. But I could feel a little more than that Monday anxiety that I had yesterday. I could feel this sort of swelling up in me like, man, this show's coming into it. I know what comes next, and I'm gonna be fucking wound up. And I actually tried really hard yesterday to ask myself why, and it helped. And I'm even now, just before the show, when I found out the guest canceled, so I was like, fuck. I was already like, I don't have a guest today, which means today's fucked. I didn't get anything out of it. This is so, and I caught myself, and I was like, why? 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 It's all fine. It's more than fine. You're incredibly blessed to be alive, to be healthy, to have a functioning body, to not have a degrading illness, a deteriorating illness. Not even those are the big ones. Okay, you don't have brain cancer. It's everything. You got 8 hours of sleep. You went to the gym. It's autumn. It's beautiful. So I'm gonna I need to work more on that. Build that counter anxiety muscle. Why? Doesn't make the out of breath any less real after the gym, but you also shouldn't freak out about it. I don't take steps to prevent it because, like I said, it means you worked hard. But it's also like, yeah, just maybe don't, unless you have to, don't have a phone call immediately. And even then, it's like, what's the real nothing? You just says, hey, sorry, I just left the gym out of breath. It doesn't mean I'm not gonna have that feeling of just out of it, but let it ride, and you're fine. I don't think I've ever quite. These are the kind of realizations I have like once a year, maybe. And I've never like captured it on video because you don't, again, you don't know when it's, just like you also don't know, hey, today's the day you're getting in a car crash. Make sure you put in a seatbelt. You don't know. Maybe that's why the guest maybe I couldn't and not only that, I texted so many because I kind of had a feeling the guest was getting canceled. I texted like 20 people who I do this all the time with, where I'm like, hey, I got a slot if you want. And there are weird things where the stars align where it's like everyone died. You just can't, no one, even the regulars are like, I'm fucking busy. You're like, what? And you're like, motherfucker. And that, as I would say, is that that's the hand of God. So, man, I feel that's awesome. This is fucking great news. As I'm saying this, a car bomb just goes off. All right, guys, I love you.